Hello viewers and welcome to the program from the Dailies on Echo Television Africa. It is the 4th of May 2022 and it's the beginning of the working day after a very long break. I am Stella Elisha Dasham and with me is Owolabi Tosin.
Good morning, Stella.
Morning Tosin, how are you doing?
I'm good. And
how was the break?
Thank God.
You get to rest, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yesterday actually happened to be the World Press Freedom Day and also World Asthma Day, and we know it's really something that countries in various parts of the nation are actually looking at how the fact that journalists do not have the freedom to express themselves, or the fact that even if you look at the theme, look at the fact that they said that journalism is under siege, and then it will tell you that actually there's a lot that needs to be done when it comes to the freedom of the press to express themselves, because they are the vanguard of the nation. They tend to be the mirror of the nation, tend to tell people what is happening in the nation. So I'm actually happy with the fact that there are steps that have been put to actually allow the press to be able to express themselves freely without any fear or anything coming from anybody to hinder them from actually saying the total truth. And also when it comes to, I think, the World Asthma Day, I think it's something that I'm happy, because when I was actually, a study looking at the statistics of people that are suffering from asthma, to tell you that a lot needs to be done. I remember when we were looking at the World Health Day, the fact that people need to keep themselves safe, and the fact that there seems to be lots of illnesses when it comes to airborne diseases, and we know asthma is one of those things. Looking at water and then the way that we don't keep our environment clean, especially when it comes to smokes and all that. So I just hope that our viewers out there will actually, keep themselves very, very protected, especially now that it's the rain, looking at your lungs and all the cool and all that. So I just hope that they will do the right thing.
Yes, for you to get your information which should be accurate and reliable, the press should not be limited. And thank God we had the World Press Day, and also the government is doing something about it, because we need our press, the pressmen, the journalists, to be able to go out to places, like freely get information and even give it out to the society, because society look out for the press to get their information, to get their accurate information and even reliable information. So the press should not be limited in places. We have in our government, there are some hearings, some plenaries that will be made, and they said they will say the press are not allowed to come in. And we see that even in foreign nations, developing nations, you see that if there's anything that has to do with the government, that has to do with any individual, you see that the press are given the audience to come in, because people need looking up to the press. People get their information from the press. So limiting the press should be something that we will not look into as a country. Since we're marking the World Press Day, NUJ are doing something about it. The government is doing something about it. The press should not be limited. We should be given access to go into places, get information, and give it out to the society.
Thank you so much, Tosin. Let's run through our papers, and I'll be starting with the Voice of Liberty. And the first story I'll be taking is on the 2023 election. Tinubu's alliance to meet Usibanjo, Fayemi, Omuso in Lagos. Still on 2023 presidency, Odumeje rejects Lawan, says it's the turn of South. And on the Kaduna escalating insecurity, terrorism won't have been a threat if federal government sustained measures I took in 2015. This is coming from Kaduna State Governor El-Rufai. NDLEA uncovers 22 billion naira consignment of illicit drugs from Abba Kyari syndicates. Still on insecurity, we have evident Nigerian soldiers work with bandits and terrorists. This is coming from the Chief of the Defense Staff, Arabo. And the Chief of the Defense Staff, Lucky Arabo, says there is evidence that Nigerian soldiers are colliding with bandits and terrorists to wreak havoc on the country. And I think this is not very far from what we've actually been saying, because each time there tends to be an attack, you realize that before the military are there or before the police are there, already they have taken, they tend to have a lead about those people are coming. Before realizing, less than 2 or 5 minutes, they're nowhere to be found. And I think this is really something that the defense chief of defense staff have actually taken to the fact that they have insiders that actually, would I say, they tend to be betraying on the military, tend to be, because we always say that we always have snitches everywhere, whether it's on the military, whether it's custom, whether it's police, we always have this. And I think this should be an inward look coming from the security agency, that what are we doing doing? What are we lacking? Why do we have military tending to work with the terrorists when it comes to bombing of places or causing havoc? And I think this should be an eye-opener. It should not just be on our papers after reading it, nothing will be done about it, but that they will take time to fish out those people that are causing the bad eggs in the military, the bad eggs in the police, the bad eggs in almost every force area. They really, really need to check, because if we are still having them there, then our fight against terrorism is going to be zero or nothing at all, because the more we still try to fight and the more we still have others. We already have issues where they say IPOB killed 2 military men. Now we're still yet, investigation is still going concerning issues like this. So I just hope that we'll be able to really, really look into it, because if you even check the terrorists, sometimes you see them with the army uniform, and this is a uniform that back then when you see this uniform, you respect them. Because you hardly get to see the military back then. I remember as a kid, you hardly see them. The moment you see a military man, you become very afraid. Why? Because it's very hard for you to see them around. They are mostly at the, the outskirts of the nation, trying to keep it safe. But with the issues we are having, you just see them, and then we tend not to even have respect for them or whatsoever, because we see them as being commoners. So I think that we really, really need to do something as a nation to make sure that the respect that the military have, the respect that the police force have, will be regained back. Not that we look at them as if these are the same people that are killing us at the end of the day. So I just hope that we'll really, really dig deeper and fish out the bad eggs at the end of the day.
Yes, and still talking about this issue of insecurity, during the Salah break, the Salah celebration, the President, as President Muhammadu Buhari, spoke about the issue of insecurity and how it has become a thing of concern in our country. And he summoned the serving chief, and now we see that the CDS, that's Tony Rabo, he also spoke to the commanders of different units that they should go out, fish those who are perpetrating insecurity, those who are promoting insecurity. And also, even amongst themselves, he said they should also fish out those security operatives, those the militaries that are the ones sponsoring this insecurity and even supporting all this insecurity act in different places. They should be fished out, and they should also, after being fished out, they should face the full wrath of the law. I think that is another step, because we've seen stories and instances where the security say when they are trying to launch an attack, they don't know how those people get this information before them, because they are snitches even among the military personnel. So this is really good. We just hope that this will not just fall on deaf ears. After this order have been given out by the Chief of Defense Staff, also those people who are supporting and even promoting insecurity, talking about the military, they will be fished out. And aside those people, also those that have been brought out that are sponsoring this banditry, sponsoring terrorism acts, they should also face the full wrath of the law, not secretly, but openly, because we saw that when the government said they are going to be face trial, that's those people who are sponsoring insecurity, the military, the media is supposed to be out of this, because it's supposed to be a secret trial that these people will face. But with this World Press Day that we experienced and celebrated yesterday, this is another opportunity that the press should be there, because we've been having stories and even reading details of insecurity and how it has affected people like a whole lot. So the media should not be out of this. When these people are supposed to face the full wrath of the law and even go through the court hearing, the media should be present in this, so that people will know the outcome on how the insecurity is being fought in our country. Because the military and the president is talking about fighting insecurity, we should not be left out. People are also agitating to see when this issue will be fought, and those people who are sponsoring this issue of insecurity, how they will be sanctioned and even face the full wrath of law. So the media should not be left out. The public should not also be left out, because we need to see the follow-up of how these things will go up.
Thank you so much, Tosin. Well, other stories still on the Voice of Liberty. Failure to zone presidency ticket to the South, invitation to crisis, and this is Akeredolu to APC. And on the World Press Freedom Day, media freedom under attack in Nigeria. This is coming from the Guide of Editors. Alleged 435 billion naira fraud. EFCC declares Rivers Accountant General and 58 others wanted. And on the Kaduna train terror attack, victims countdown. We have 37 days in captivity, and still under the insurgents. We're still hoping that something will be done about it, because already family members are saying that the federal government have kept them in the dark concerning their loved ones. The federal government is not saying anything. We're only having it from the civil society, streets and other individuals coming out to say the fact that we need to do something about this. Let's not forget that ASU is still on strike. We're still yet to hear anything from the federal government. So we just hope that it will not just be a countdown as if we're actually looking at the fact that it's something pleasant, because we know the month of May is actually going to be a month for the various primary elections, starting from the state down to the presidency. So it should not be that we'll just put our focus on the election, forgetting the fact that some people are still under captivity. So this is a call to our government to actually do something about this. And that's all on the Voice of Liberty.
Thank you, Stella. Moving to Daily Independent newspaper. It's time for South to produce president. Akeredolu wants APC chair and others. On 2023, God will handle any southern governor or ex-governor who accepts vice president. This is coming from Chief Edwin Clark, and he said that they will handle whoever is accepting the position of vice president from the presidential zoning that is supposed to take place. You know that they've been agitation that this zoning, the presidency should go to the south, and now Chief Edwin Clark is saying whoever accepts the position of a vice president, that he or she will be left to God to handle, and he or she will be seen as an unpatriotic citizen because they want the position of the presidency to come to the south. And also on 2023 presidency, PDP governors kick as Atiku plans to retain Peter Obi as running mate. And we know that in the year 2019, for the presidential election, Peter Obi, that's the ex-governor of Anambra State, was the running mate to Atiku Abubakar, and they lost to the APC. That's where Muhammadu Buhari took over as the president. And now we are seeing that Atiku is planning to retain Peter Obi as his running mate, despite the fact that Peter Obi also has taken the position he wants to come out as a president. Atiku also wants to come out as a president. So you can see that there's a clash of interest here. But it's left out for the zoning and also for the primaries so that the decisions can be made, and we'll know who is coming out in representing a different party. We know that the primary for the APC will take place 28th, 29th of May, that's this year, this month. So we're looking up to that of PDP, and we know that Peter Obi and even Atiku are for the PDP. So we'll look out for the primaries and know whoever is representing the party. And still on the Daily Independent, no section of Nigeria should have domineering advantage over others. This is from Bamidele. And Amaechi is telling journalists on the World Press Day, he says, hold public officers accountable if Nigeria must move forward. We know, will I say this is just words of mouth, because we know that Amaechi also is a minister of transportation, and we have so many issues that are surrounding our transport sector. We just had the train attack, and over a month now we have victims who are under siege in the hands of banditry, in the hand of kidnappers, and nothing is said about them. We've seen issues where on our road, the roads are no longer safe. They are no roadworthy for people to ply. We see where tanker drivers are even protesting because of the bad road, and we see that the road now are used as a hideout by kidnappers, where they kidnap people even on a highway. So now the Minister of Transportation is saying hold public officers accountable because they must move forward. If the country must move forward, we should hold them accountable. Will I say because he's aspiring to come out as to the position of presidency come 2023. That's why he's saying all these things. But your own position, you should do something about it. So many issues are surrounding the transport sector, and nothing is said about it concerning him. So if he really wants to stand by what he's saying, then we should see changes and even see improvement in our public sector. Sele, with the little time he have, he can still create that change. That change is possible. Even with 2 weeks, you can do something very good, something that people will applaud you for. So we want to see the changes, want to see what he's saying, want to see it being put in our transport sector, because when our road sector, the transport sector is really bad, how will it help in promoting interstate traveling? How will it help in even business activities? Because there are people who travel from one state to the other for business purposes. We see that our aviation sector, people can all use the plane because of the prices, the high rate of the air hike, and now people cannot even use the transportation because it is even a threat to themselves and even their family because of the kidnapping. And ransom being demanded from these people. So we need to see changes even in our transportation sector, and this goes out to other people who are holding public offices. You need to, if you say you want to change and you want the country to move forward, it starts from the position you're occupying. Let's see changes even in the smallest position you occupy, and that will even give people the assurance and even have people make people believe in you and even give you bigger positions. And still on the Daily Independent, 1.12 trillion naira food import bill. Stakeholders urge federal government to tackle insecurity, low purchasing power. Nance warned politicians to be civil as 2023 polls approaches, and details can be found in page 7 of the Daily Independent newspaper, and that's all on the paper.
Thank you, Tosin. Let's take a look at the Leadership newspaper. Humanitarian crisis. Guterres seek assistance for Borno. Detail of that can be found on page 11. And on insecurity, police revive forensic labs and criminal database. 8 banks pay 2.8 billion naira for regulatory infraction in 2021. Resignation, obey Section 84 of Electoral Act, lawyers tell appointees. Detail of that can also be found on page 7. And 30 days to the INEC deadline on flag bearers, Southern governors insist on power shift to South. Says it's our turn to produce the next president. Warn parties to avoid self-inflicting crisis. Don't create tension over zoning, Northern elders reply. And civil society's back governors insist on Southern president. Fayemi set to declare today, and detail of all this can be found on page 4. NDLA traces 22 billion naira tramadol import to Baron linked to Kyari. And we have Osoba Akande meet with Southwest presidential aspirants on Friday. Worst days ahead for bandits, terrorists, military vows. Detail of that can be found on page 6. And just like we say, talk is cheap, but what we want to see actions. I think we've been saying war, 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 war. I think it's high time we take the war to the bandits if we actually know where they are, because I believe that we do. We're just looking for a better way to approach them. I believe for all this time the military have been sitting, they have already planned and they have a better way to approach the bandits. So I believe that we'll be waiting and keeping our fingers crossed to see the way forward. And that's all on the Leadership newspaper.
On the Nigerian News Direct, free train service, vehicles for making Osun economic hub of Southwest. 71% of Nigerian businesses were hit by cyber attack in 2021. This is a report. And Fayemi joins APC presidential race on fold agendas. Southwest agenda says Akande Osoba to meet Tinubu, Oshibanjo, other presidential aspirants, as Akeredolu insists power must shift to South. My government won't condone acts that can't truncate peace, harmony in Ogun. This is coming from the governor of Ogun, which is Dapo Abiodun. An insecurity linked to Nigerians' failure to invest in human capacity building. And this is from Peter Obi. Nigeria's crude production crashed by 1.2 million barrels in April. This is from OPEC. And on 2022 OTC, NNPC board chairman commends Nigeria's participation. Obasanjo is saying all will be well with Nigeria, and we say amen to that prayer because we are hopeful, and the prayer is that all should be well with our country. With all that we are going through, we just pray that there will be lights at the end of the tunnel. And NDLA uncovers 22 billion naira worth of imported tramadol. Details can be found in page 22 of the Nigerian News Direct, and that's all on the Nigerian News Direct.
Thank you, Tosin. I look at the Nation newspaper, and this is on APC primaries. We have Olawupo Hashim joins the presidential race, Fayemi Omuso Bakari Apabio to declare, and Southwest leaders to meet Tinubu and VP and others. Detail of that story can be found on page 3 and 5. And on insecurity, INEC officials to reject posting in 4 states. ASU strike negotiation panel report ready. We actually hope that they will really look into this panel, the report that have been brought, because it's really tiring for the students. You know, they're becoming will I say nuisance to the society, because it's either they are caught stealing in one place or the other, taking drugs and all that. Why? Because they are idle, doing nothing. No even organization wants to take them in as volunteers, because they do not know when they will resume school. So I just hope that actually this negotiation will actually bring out positive results at the end of the day. Other stories still on the nation. Dana explained Port Harcourt Airport incidents. Buhari to visit Ebuyi. Detail of both stories can be found on page 5 and 7. El-Rufai simultaneous bombing of forests can end banditry. And we have reintegration of repentant terrorists necessary for peace, says Guterres. That is the UN Secretary General that came into the country yesterday, and he's raising hope in Borno, because he actually visited the country yesterday, especially went to Borno, the IDP camp, to see issues about that, and the fact that we really need to sit up when it comes to our human capital to see that we're able to fight insurgents, because they are not beyond us. I always say this, but I believe that we just need to take the right step in the right direction before we realize it. All this will be a story of the past. And the big story here, let's end zoning suspend. Akeredolu tells APC leaders with the rider for equity, power shift necessary, says Clark and Ngige. And we also have another 22 billion naira tramadol imported by Kyari's ally seized. Ogun PDP members protest. And the picture story here, we can see the governor Zulum of Borno together with the UN Secretary General when he came into the country yesterday. And that's all the story on the Nation newspaper.
Yes, and on this day newspaper, still on the story of the Secretary General of the United Nations, Guterres says the Borno I found today is one of hope. And telcos seek upward review of voice calls, SMS, data services cost. And NDLEA Ukatu, billionaire's drug baron, imported 22 billion naira worth of tramadol in 1 month. Akeredolu to Buhari, it's Southerners' turn to produce next president. The riders following the story says, don't keep party waiting. Rotational presidency legal, constitutional, says Bamidele. Clark insists on Igbo presidency, accuses North of oppression. Once any Southerners agreeing to be vice president, unpatriotic. And the picture story here, peace on their mind. We can see Tony Ulumelu, that's the founder of the United UBA and also the special assistant to the United States President and senior director for Africa, Mrs. Diana Banks, during the press chat between Tony Ulumelu and herself. Here, U.S. Supreme Court orders probe after rare leak of draft abortion ruling. Details also can be found in page 10 on the Punch newspaper, on the This Day newspaper, and that's all on This Day newspaper.
A look at the Vanguard newspaper. Efe Babalola say, I encourage politicians to examine the consequences of their deception. While it may earn them political office, it will cost them to lose the faith and the trust of the people they rule. If you want to know more about that, you can check that on page 22 of the Vanguard newspaper. And the fifth columnist in military, CDS General Irabo, expresses outrage over troops' convenience with terrorists and bandits. Detail of that can be found on page 25. 4 district head lawmakers suspended for disturbing Salah Turban in Zauzau. And we have beheading of 2 soldiers. Army vows to unmask brain predators to book. Detail of that can be found on page 6. And we have the Imaginary Field Council 2020 Award Refund Signature Bonus. Stakeholders tell the federal government. And the big story on Vanguard, APC PDP presidential slot. Be fair, seat ticket to the South, Clark Southern governors insist. With the rider, power must shift for equity, justice, and fair play. This is from the Southern governors. Gowon wouldn't have allowed Igbos leave Nigeria. Zoning must hold. Still coming from Clark. Rotational presidency, legal, constitutional. coming from the Southern senators. How power can shift to the South. This is coming from Sheikh Husani. Fresh crisis looms in PDP over zoning ACOC delegates list. And we have, we'll go with PDP decision on zoning. This is coming from Obi and Otom Emmanuel. And it will be unfair, unjust betrayal of trust if APC zones presidency to the north, says Indume. And on the World Press Freedom Day, Obaseki Sawolu Obiodun Otom assured journalists of support. Detail of that can be found on page 8. And on 2023, Fayemi Olawupo Kashim declares bid for presidency. Keep speaking truth to power, but extend it to terrorists. Buhari tax Catholic bishops. Detail of that can be found on page 8. Terrorism can't be fought by military might alone. This is coming from the UN scribe. Can disown pastor who offers to take members to heaven for 301,000 naira. NDLA uncovers 22 billion naira worth of tramadol allegedly imported by businessman linked to Abba Kyari. Detail of that also can be found on page 6. And the picture story here, we can see the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, the President, Muhammadu Buhari, Central Bank of Nigerian Governor, Mr. Godwin Amefe during the Salah homage at the State House, Abuja. And that's all on the Vanguard newspaper.
And on the Daily Trust newspaper, on 2023 presidency, Tinubu Osinbajo orders Southwest leaders to meet Friday. 7 years after federal government yet to implement aviation development roadmap. And on World Press Freedom Day, Nigerian journalists decry worsening condition. 71 pressmen killed, 293 incarcerated in 1 year worldwide, and practitioners under surveillance in Nigeria. This is coming from IPI. Sticks to ethics, governors tell media. We will never allow terrorists to have their way. This is coming from the Sultan of Sokoto. An army declares war on IPOB for killing couple personnel. Olawepo Hashim picks APC presidential form tomorrow, and 50 passengers escape as fire got plane's tire in Port Harcourt. Details can be found in page 29 of the Daily Trust newspaper, and that's all on the Daily Trust.
A look at the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. Fayemi Akpabio joint presidential race declares today. Olawupo Hashim declares presidential ambition, says new better Nigeria possible. Detail of that can be found on page 5. And plot to Jesetun zoning, Akere Dolu, Indume, Kokori, Bamidele and others won APC. With the rider, this is certainly not the time for equivocation. This is coming from Akere Dolu. If APC fails the northern candidate, that will be tantamount to third term. This is coming from Indume. It will be suicidal if it goes to the north again. This is coming from Kokori. And students have protested over prolonged ASU strike. This is really a sad one. We just hope that something will be done. Detail of that story can be found also on page 16. Family accuses police of torturing son to death in Ogun. And this is really a sad one. I remember we had the hashtag NSAS, which also had to do with coming from the way police actually treat people. And I hope that will really go back. It's not just be a one thing that after I think steps have been taken, and then we'll still go back to the way things are. I just hope that the police force and order will actually look into issues like this, because it's really a sad one that you lose your child as a result of malhandlement coming from the police force. And the UN Secretary General in Nigeria visits rehabilitation center and IDP camp. Mother of 2 soldiers by IPOB, ESN Carlos. This is coming from the army. And 50 passengers rescued after fire got aircraft tires at Port Harcourt Airport. APC Southwest leaders to meet Tinubu, Osinbajo, Fayemi, Omushon this week. And we have NEC decision on zoning can go either way. From PDP says as party stakeholders prepare for crutch meeting. And the last story I'll be taking here, private sector invests $67.2 billion in low middle income countries. And this is a report coming from the World Bank. Detail of that can be found on page 6. So if you're interested in any of the story, do well to get the Nigerian Tribune. You can read any of the stories that is of interest to you. But before we move to other papers too, so I'd like us to take a time out where we can open our phone lines to our viewers, where you can call us and let us know what your views are concerning any of the story that is of interest to you. And also remember, we are live on Facebook and also on YouTube, so you can drop your comment and we'll do well to read it after this time. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, the program is from the Dailies, and we've been looking at various stories that have been making the headlines from our Nigerian newspaper. I am Sele Elisha Dasham, and with me have been Owola Bitosin.
Thanks, Sele.
Yes, and our phone line is actually open right now, where you can call us and let us know what your views are concerning any of the story that's of interest to you. You can also drop your comment on our Facebook page, and we'll do well to read it. Let's move to the next paper, Tosin.
The next paper is the Daily Sun newspaper, and on poverty, World Bank mocks Nigeria, says refusal to invest in human capital, diversify economic aggravating situation. North should keep presidency if South won't have it. This is from Adeyonju. Okoro Madubiko rejoices over the Sun Award, while Omo Agege begs APC for forgiveness, appoints Niboro media director. On 2023, South should produce president, says Akeredolu, urges APC leaders to make public party zoning arrangements, and details can be found in page 26 of the Daily Sun newspaper. El Rufai indicts security agencies for worsening insecurity in Kaduna, claims they didn't sustain measures he took, while Oshibanjo, Tinubu, Amosun, Fayemi, others for Southwest Unity Conference. PDP's presidential primary under threat as party candidate lock horns in courts. An Imo explosion, how angry gods killed our people. This is coming from Monarchs in the East. Details can be found in page 20 and 21 of the Daily Sun newspaper. And the picture story here, we can see the managing director, editor-in-chief, the Sun Publishing Limited, Onoha Uke, presenting letter announcing chairman, the Chico Group, Chief Benson Madubiko, as the winner of Entrepreneur of the Year award in Lagos, and chairman, CEO, Corinthia Villa Hotel, Abuja, Chief Augustino Okoro, as Hospitality Personality of the Year award in Abuja. And that's all on the Daily Sun newspaper.
Let's take a look. Thank you so much, Tosin. Let's look at the Punch newspaper. Nigerians to pay more as I take that story again. Nigerians to pay more as GSM operators plan 40% tariff hike. Detail of that can be found on page 22. Activists threaten to sue Buhari over NIS bus tenure extension, and can read more of that on page 7 of the Punch newspaper. Power from owned banks 861.14 billion naira amid worsening electricity crisis. More of that can be found on page 21. MKO Abiola's son asks Buhari to probe father's death. Detail of that also can be found on page 7. And on ranching, others will deliver 2 trillion naira return on investment. This is coming from the federal government. And fertilizer shortage, Nigeria import Canadian potash to replace Russian supply. And the big story, dumping rotational presidency will cause crisis. This is coming from Akeredolu and the senators, with the writer following that story. It's South's turn to produce president, Ondo governor wants APC. Akande, Oshuba, Tinubu, Osibanjo, Umusho, others meet Friday over the Southwest candidacy. An Ondo governor threatens democracy. This is coming from the CNG. Fayemi Olawubo Hashim joined the race. And picture story here where we see the UN Secretary General Guterres in Nigeria to meet Buhari. We can see picture story of some of the people in the IDP camps. EFCC probes Sumadami 8 over sale of presidential pardon. Detail of that can be found on page 15. And ex-military men plan protests over pension board exclusion. Alba Kyari drug baron imports 22 billion naira tramadol, says NDLEA. Detail of that can be found on page 4. And Ogun police torture motorcyclists to death. Family demand justice. How Lagos building collapsed on praying grammar. Businessman searching for apartment. And the last story here, federal government keep trained hostages families in the dark. Victims spent 36 days in terrorist den. And detail of that story can be found on page 3 of the Punch newspaper.
Yes, one on the Guardian newspaper, Discos deny rejecting 2,495.3 megawatt electricity load as supply remains dismal. 2023 presidency, Gowon should have allowed Igbo leave, says Clark. And zoning, Ohanese youth fault Uwazurike for endorsing Bello. Nigerian army condemns killing of 2 officers in Owerri. The big story says intense jostile for market share as telcos delve into retail banking. The rider MTN targets 4th quarter for PSB services. Airtel to announce this month, and banks struggle to retain talent as telcos launch aggressive headhunt. Telcos broadband control raises fear of unfair competition, and DMB source viable fintech for acquisition. A new wave of competition for the retail segment of banking has been activated, with MTN and Airtel eyeing a large chunk of the market that has sustained the profitability of many deposit money banks for decades. The hustle and fierce contest among DMB and payment platform for control of retailing bank market is ready, standing jitters through boardroom of many leaders after leading telcos. MTN and Airtel were recently granted final approval to operate mobile money, which is Momo payment service bank, about 6 months after they were granted provisional licenses. The authorization has paved way for them to delve into banking operators with a few non-permissible areas as lending and foreign exchange operators. The approval with banks and even other sectors continues in page 2 of the Guardian newspaper. And why strike may persist in varsities by Susanu and Nat. Nigeria complex but not complicated to govern, says Obasanjo. And Emir of Zazzau suspends 4 district heads over Doba rules. Khan denounces pastor auctioning heaven's tickets for 310,000 naira. And I will say the end time, we're approaching the end time, and we see so many false prophets, because for a pastor to say he's auctioning heaven's ticket for this amount of money, like how did he even get this ticket? Talk more of auctioning. We need to stand with our faith and not allow anything to distract us. I was just telling a colleague before we went on air that just stand true to what you believe. Don't allow people to confuse you with your own faith, because we have so many churches, we have so many false prophets around. They call on the name of God, but they don't walk with what the Bible says. We see even on our papers where you see in different churches, so many kind of activities are taking place just for people to make heaven. So many things are happening just for people to get the deliverance and even healing. And we can see this happening. We just hope that the Khan will do something about it. How many churches are registered? We have so many churches around. How many of them are registered? Something needs to be done about it. Not just the educational sector need to be registered. We had issues where different schools are being opened and they are not registered. Even the church, something you should need to look into all these things. Having so many church where people's faith are people, they're just confusing people the more when you go to those places, just in the quest to have deliverance, in the quest to for childbirth, in the quest for quick marriage. You see people going to different places where they are not supposed to go to, and the doctrine there contradict what the Bible is saying, and we can see all these things happening. We just hope that the body, the can would do something about this, and all those churches that are not registered, all those churches that are illegal, something should be done about this, because with what is happening in the country, we don't need people's faith again to be confused. We don't need people's minds to be corrupted. We don't need people to be confused about where to stand, because these are what is happening. Imagine a church unctioning the ticket to heaven. If the ticket to heaven is being unctioned, that means so many people will buy it. You have to, your faith, people's faith need to stand strong, and people need to hold on to the Bible. We should not run from one church to the other just for quick deliverance. You have everything in your Bible. Hold on to your faith, study the word of God, believe in Christ, and know that everything will work out fine. And still on the Guardian newspaper, the next president must come from southern Nigeria. Akeredolu tells APC. The last story, Peter Obi stresses need to replace sharing with production formula. And this story can be found in page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. And that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
Let's take a look at the New Telegraph newspaper. Power investors spend 72 billion naira on alternative sources. This is coming from the Maintenance Association of Nigeria, MAN, with saying 1.3 billion market penetration disrupted. Detail of that story can be found on page 3 of the New Telegraph newspaper. Oil gas boosts stock market within 117 billion naira gain. More of that story can be found on page 17. Defend journalists from attack. Threat. Jonathan urges government and others. Autumn and others salute courage of Nigerian press. Akeredolu wants APC against denying South 2023 presidency. Fayemi declares for presidency today. 19 years after Abiola's sons urges Buhari to probe father's death, and more of that can be found on page 8. And on 2023, fake PDP screening, clearance certificate tear Delta aspirant apart. Detail of that can also be found on page 4. And the screaming story here, National Assembly frustrating anti-craft war, says Sagi. Regret non-passage of bill establishing special court. Alleges senators collect 15 million naira monthly salary, proposes unicameral legislature. More of that can be found on page 3. And the Catholic bishop reputable for speaking truth to power. This is coming from Buhari as Kigama attacks political leaders on good governance. UN chief to meet ex-Boko Haram militants in Borno. More of that can be found on page 8. And we have El-Rufai informat fueling insecurity in Kaduna. Lament follow-up operations needed after collaborative effort of Northwest Niger State governors in 2015 were not sustained by security agency. More of that story can be found on page 4. And we have a study here that said climate change increased risks of new virus outbreak, and I think that is in relation to some of the airborne diseases we've been having. So I think some of our factories also we need to go back to the plan that we actually have, because some of this tend to exaggerate lots of carbon dioxide to the air that has not been filtered. A lot of people breathe in the air. We have the likes of other, lots of things are being released. If you check the weather presently, is very hot as a result of our ozone layer has been cracking, and all these studies have been coming up. So I think we really need to keep our fingers crossed, and also to check our environment, what we tend to release to the air, because we can see where we had the COVID-19, it was all as a result of some of the things that have been released to the air. So we really need to take some of these things very serious, and that's all on the New Telegraph newspaper.
And on Business Day, Nigeria earns twice more from gas than oil in first quarter. No alternative to restructuring, private sector operators insist. As Akeredolu says, South must produce next president. African startups raises $2.25 billion in 4 months, up 250%. Shopping sales hit 9.76 trillion naira's COVID-19 corpse case Euronometer. An explainer here says how organization can block ransomware cyber attack, and this detail is in page 30 of the Business Day newspaper, and that's all on the Business Day.
Thank you, Tosin. And on the Daily Times newspaper, we have train attack. We are working on safe return of adopted person. This is coming from President Buhari. Says bandit using captives as human shield. And that's why we say we need more intelligence to see how we can go about this. If they're using this, those they've adopted as human shield, because we're already having the governor of Kaduna saying that we should bomb all the forests at once. And we know that on bombing all these forests at once, Tosin, this innocent will be affected. Just last week, we had a picture of the newborn baby that was on our various papers that is very innocent. She's not even aware of her environment. And we have other pregnant women that are already held captive. What about small kids that are also, they're very innocent of what is happening? And I think all this will boil down to what are our security agents and the government doing about this. Yes, the president has given us his word that he's working on the safe return of this, but how safe are we going to have them? Some of them are already traumatized as a result of that. Some of them already cannot even sleep. The environment is raining right now, so you could imagine how the environment is going to be right now. It's cold and all that, so we just hope that something will be done very, very quick for them to return back to their loved ones. And still on Daily Times newspaper, the screaming story here, it's South's turn to produce president. Akere Dodu tells APC, and the writer following that story, once consequences may train dumping of zoning. Asks party to make pronouncement now. North will benefit more if Southerners become president, says Ndume, and detail of that also can be found on page 2. We also have a picture story here, so you can do well to get the Daily Times newspaper and can read any of the stories that's of interest here.
The last paper, which is the Sporting Sun, Super Eagles star rated third most expensive player in Denmark at 4.9 billion naira. Reds romp into final in style, survive early scare. And Pep eyes to record against Real Madrid. Madrid hoping for another magical night. While Bayern yet to offer Lewandowski's new deal. Ronaldo hits at Man U stay. Anthony Joshua close to new TV deal, and Chelsea demands 75 million euro for Lukaku. And Moses Simon makes L'Equipe's team of the week. And that's all on the Sporting Sun newspaper.
Thank you so much, Tosi. They tend to be quite interesting story on the Sporting Sun. Funny enough, someone like me that is not so much into sports, but I just love the red color. So possibly maybe I'll go with Ronaldo on the Manchester United. Well, to all our sport lovers, we just hope that you could actually, go through, because they tend to be quite, interesting stories, to take our minds away from the lots of chaos that's actually happening in the country. But that's why we are here, where we can bring hope to the hopeless, because Equa TV is here to always make sure that in the midst of all the things that are happening, the insecurity, the poverty that is happening, there's always hope at the end of the day. Thank you so much, Tosin, for doing this with me. And this is a wrap from all of us on Equa Television. Thank you so much for keeping a date with us. Until we come your way again tomorrow, do stay tuned for other lineup of our programs. Have a blessed day ahead.